From the virtual newsroom of Impact Alpha, this is your Impact Briefing for Friday, December 10th. I'm Monique Aiken. Today, I'll look back on a year of conversations on the Reconstruction podcast. And I'll look forward to welcoming all of you to next week's Agent of Impact call on this series on December 14th. But first, here's what you need to know from this week in impact investing. Next year's shareholder proxy season could be transformational. In a guest post on Impact Alpha, Majority Action's Eli Kassergod Stubb laid out 3 ways climate-committed shareholders can use their proxy votes to hold directors accountable. The key? Getting the big 3 asset managers of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street to join efforts to oust directors that fail to address systemic climate risk. And here's a data point in another trend Impact Alpha has been watching: the digitization of small businesses in emerging markets. Trade Depot brought in $110 million to provide capital for informal merchants in Nigeria. Enterprise technology providers that bring micro businesses online are becoming a channel for financing as well. Energy software providers Voltus will go public through a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. The deal values Voltus, which lets large companies and property owners help rebalance the grid, at $1.3 billion. Reducing energy use in response to high demand can be the virtual equivalent of bringing a power plant online. Here's a switch. Limerock Partners raised less than planned for its renewable energy fund. Limerock New Energy had targeted $600 million but came up with only $375 million. Despite the new green fund, the oil and gas investors' fossil fuel investments continue to climb, but at a declining rate. 'Tis the season for impact reports. Impact Alpha rounded up the annual disclosures from Energy Impact Partners, Capricorn Investment Group, and others. Verus Wealth Partners, the $2 billion impact-focused wealth management firm, is pressing its managers for fuller reporting of equity, diversity, and inclusion data. Impact Alpha subscribers got all of these stories and more in their email each day this week. Since February, the Reconstruction podcast has released 24 episodes featuring the leaders whose insights and examples will help us create the more just next normal that we need. Our systems, which were already failing many before the pandemic, were further exposed to be less resilient and more unequal than was ever broadly acknowledged. These leaders we spoke to hail from the fields of human and civil rights, restorative justice, affordable housing, health equity, climate justice, and more. 3 words connect the different ways of leading that these guests embody: rethink, redress, liberate. Next week, we're going to talk about both the historical reconstruction in the U.S. and the solutions on Impact Alpha's Agents of Impact call. I'll be joined by some past guests from the podcast, like Melissa Bradley of 1863 Ventures. They're supporting Black and Brown entrepreneurship with small grants and online training for hundreds of businesses in more than a dozen cities.
Because I think particularly the trend of Black women starting businesses has actually started 5 years ago. I think that's been the fastest growing segment for a long time, where there has been a 40% decline in white men. For years, there's been this increase of Black women and people of color. And I think it's because we realize that is probably the truest form of a pathway for us to actually realize economic wealth and empowerment. At least with entrepreneurship, there's an ability to be in control of your own destiny, focus on what you do well, focus on what you enjoy. And I would say many of us, particularly as Black and Brown entrepreneurs, have a unique competitive advantage of white firms, and that we know how to tap into the trillions of dollars of consumer power that we have that so many other businesses cannot.
Another early guest who will join the call is Jean Bruskin, whose musical That Moment Was Now brings together the historical themes of the Reconstruction.
So I have come to the conclusion that I must bring together the people who can unite our great movements before it is too late, to create a plan for massive foment in this moment. For moments come and moments pass, and moments don't last forever. And we cannot freeze them, we must seize them.
But who's going to do it, Frederick?
You can see the musical for yourself on Impact Alpha's YouTube page. On the podcast, we also heard from other leaders whose work focuses on rethinking investing practices. Here's Rodney Foxworth of Common Future.
How do we recognize the history, the historical context and contemporary context of exploitation and extraction, and heal those wounds and then ensure that communities have the power that they need from a financial perspective. And so it really is about challenging norms around market rate returns. It's about challenging norms around what is risky, what's a risky investment, right? Those sort of norms and assumptions are really challenged by the idea of really restoring what was extracted from and exploited in a particular community, and then providing capital, social, political, financial, that ensures that that community can not only survive, but thrive and assert its own power.
Rodney led me to Nwamaka Agbo of the Katali Foundation. She spoke about how, as climate action and infrastructure spending ramp up, we need to think beyond green jobs.
What I recognize is that we should have been dreaming bigger. We should have actually been not just preparing people to get access into entry-level jobs, but we should have been positioning ourselves as the ones to be the business owners, to be the designers, the architects, and the decision makers in the clean and green economy.
Brilliant people like Ann Price gave us a path forward, a blueprint for the how.
This idea that actually that centering Blackness really allows us to see ourselves in another way, right? It enables us to kind of see our humanity in ways that we haven't before. So I see it as very inclusionary. I see it as a means to build multiracial solidarity, because we can all look at anti-Blackness and how it plays out, no matter where we're from and how we got here in this country.
In the series, I ask all of my guests, what can we do to be good ancestors in this moment? Their answers were wide-ranging and inspiring. And for me, I ask, how can we create a new imagination, turning our collective grief and trauma into kinetic energy for meaningful, sustainable action around systems change that centers justice? That is how I believe we can be good ancestors, by making justice normal. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can move forward. Join the conversation December 14th. Head over to impactalpha.com or our Eventbrite page to RSVP and check out all the podcasts on Spotify or wherever you listen. That's going to do it for this week's Impact Briefing. With sincere gratitude to the Reconstruction team, the steering committee, as well as the production squad, and of course, our producer Isaac Silk. Subscribe to get full access to the site and the daily brief. Right now, we're offering podcast listeners $100 off their first subscription. Go to impactalpha.com/subscribe and use the code briefing100. Thank you for listening. I'm Monique Aiken, Managing Director of TIP, the Investment Integration Project. Make sure to check back for next week's briefing, and until then, take care.